I want to ask you about I think it was a bus drive, a train trip you took 20 years past?
Yeah, a bus trip across the southern states somewhere where I saw something very similar to what we see on our billboards in a field somewhere in the south, which stuck in my mind for like 10 years, and I didn't, write it down, but I knew it was horrible enough and outrageous enough to be the seed of a story. And I got the idea that a mother put it there, and then the character of Mildred just popped out.
So this was 10 years past, or when you started writing?
Started writing 8 years ago. I mean, started and finished it 8 years ago.
And then has it been gestating since then, or did you have to put it down before you had to?
It was kind of like I always write a thing and then just don't really. I'm kind of too lazy to do anything about it for a few years, unless Graham, my producer.
Try producing that.
So just left it in a not even in a drawer. It was just, on the floor. So at least it would, stay in my mind. But then we went back to it, I guess, 5 years ago and said we should do it, and then sent it straight to Francis and then sent it to Sam.
So what was right about the timing in terms of the way in which you could make the movie, the independence that you would have producing and directing it? Why was that time right, and what were the important things as a producer that you wanted to make sure your filmmaker had?
The timing is partly about how often Martin will make a film, and that doesn't happen as often as we might all like. But the script was written, and I read it before we made Seven Psychopaths, which we shot here in Los Angeles. I think as a producer with talent like Martin, what you're trying to do is to just set up the very best, safest environment to enable him to do his best work with the actors. So we made this with Fox, who distribute worldwide and film for in the UK, but the structure of it was such that Martin had the authority as a filmmaker to do what was right for the film and to make his very best film. I mean, it was set up that way, and everyone was very supportive of that process.
When you are writing a movie like this, you're writing specifically for Francis and writing specifically for Sam.
Yep.
What happens if they're not interested? How do you? I mean, that's a serious question. Obviously, they were
screwed. You're completely screwed. Yeah, you are. But luckily, they know a good thing when they see one. So, but you would I can't imagine anyone else in those two parts. Because they're the best of their generation. So it you could probably do something, but it wouldn't be good. So luckily, didn't have to cross that bridge.
One of the things that the film is very careful about, and I suspect it is in working with your actors, about tone and about sentimentality and whether or not these actors are going to sentimentalize the characters that they are playing. What were the conversations that you had with Sam about playing the character, not judging the character at the same time?
I think it's always pretty easy when we talk about it. It's never like a big deal. We just kind of we adjust things here and there. We'll read it out loud. You and I usually get together and read it out loud.
Yeah. We know never to sentimentalize or patronize the characters. It's just part in our DNA, I guess. Especially if it's a working class character, because that's sort of our backgrounds to a big degree, and Francis too. So that would never really come into play. Basically, it's just about finding the truth of a character. If you go for the truth, then those issues don't really come into play.
Where do you find the truth of Dixon, and where do you imagine? What do you imagine has brought him to where he is at the beginning of the story?
In retrospect, I think he was probably beaten by his father or something. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really think about that, but now But in his relationship with his mother is very odd.
Normal to me.
Normal, sure, in a kind of Hamlet way. But yeah, Coriolanus way. Anyway, so he
Irish way.
Irish way, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, he's a complicated guy. He's definitely an interesting character to play. I mean, it's a great part that Martin wrote for me. So it's a great part.
And how do you cast the city? I mean, because you have to find a city that is going to meet the demands of the script, that is going to feel as if it's an authentic city. Where did you look, and where did you find your Ebbing?
Mississippi for a second, weren't we? Were we? Yeah.
Honestly, we went. It's strange because you live in London, where I do, and I don't know the United States so well, particularly the middle bits. So you have this map of states and tax credits and things like that. What's clear is that all the ambitions, if you put people together like Sam and Fran and Martin and Woody, the reach for everything that everyone wants to do is so much bigger than a normal budget's going to give you. And yet you don't want a towering budget that gives you all the pressures and encourages blandness. So you look for tax credit states. In this version, Martin was on tour almost through various tax credit states. It was Mississippi at one stage. North Carolina offered us ultimately a town of Silver, which is a one-street town, which is featured in the film. Beautiful place in real life. What was important, I think, to Martin and the designer was the relationship between the police station and the advertising agency. And that one street told that story. So Martin can tell more about that.
Yes, it was to find sort of an iconic small town in the South, and a place that felt like it could be a character in the film, not as much as Bruges was, but to feel like the town had its own personality to a degree. But the proximity of one side to the other was quite important, and to find a place that we could use as a police station. And literally, for that 2-minute shot, we wanted to find a place where a character could walk from one side to the other, upstairs, throw someone out. All of that was in the forefront of our minds when we picked the town.
The ending feels totally perfect, and yet it's an ending that audiences who are conditioned to tidy endings wouldn't feel comfortable with. Was that ending essential? Did you ever fluctuate? Was that always the way that it had to be?
It was always that way in the script. There are almost a couple of false endings before that, and there was a time when we kind of went back and forth a little bit about what would be the coolest or the most cinematic way to end it. But I love the ambiguity of that ending, and I love that it's not about vigilantism in those final moments when it could be like 1 minute before that. And even though it's kind of messy and a little strange and ends abruptly, I like that in a film. I like that. And I like that it's not a case that's wrapped up, because I think you can review a film that ends like this, more than once. But if it's something that's perfectly,
If it's a procedural, if it's a whodunit, then and it's like it doesn't.
Exactly, yeah.
So that the audience, if it's a whodunit, the satisfaction is figuring out or seeing who's done it, as opposed to who didn't do it. I mean, it's a totally different question.
Yes, because this film becomes more about how are these people changing, and is there hope for people who begin a story so angrily, and so and having made like such horrible choices and brutish choices, is there room for hope? And that became the story instead of once Woody does what he does in the middle of the film, it becomes not about solving the case. It becomes, is there hope to be found with these people?
Martin, Sam, Graham, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.